Hello. Thank you for all the beautiful comments. I've been getting more comments on my video than I usually do. And I like it because it inspires thought in me, reflection in me. It inspires extra videos. And one of the comments particularly has reminded me of the importance I suppose it's a practice, but it's an agreement when I hold group spaces. If I'm doing one of the directions, let's say, so it's a coaching and healing facilitator program. So we spend 4 days together, but it's also like a retreat. So you're learning how to hold space for others. You're learning how to be a healer. You're learning how to be a somatic psychic coach. But it's also for you. It's also a retreat for the participants that are there. So we have sacred agreements at the beginning of the 4 days because it's like a retreat rather than just learning. It's like you learn whilst you're doing the practices for yourself. Because for me, the best way that I learn is actually to do it in situ. So I do the practices, I apply them to myself, I give the healing to myself, I do the thing on myself, and then I go, okay, now I know how to work with this through somebody else because I've taken it on board in my own consciousness, rather than it just being something that you memorize and then you teach something that you've memorized to somebody. It's more of an embodied process. A somatic process, so the participants do it themselves. And one of the agreements at the beginning of sacred space is speak in the I. And the comment has made me go, this is why I'd like to speak to the importance of this agreement. And when we're in a group space with other people, if we're sharing into the space, the importance to share what you want to share in the I. So it comes from your personal experience. And it's really juicy and really interesting because if that doesn't happen, it's sort of like there's a perpetual separation. And it's kind of like you're not going to get anywhere because it's coming from the wrong place of consciousness. So if I describe the comment, and I love the comments, please keep bringing them. If this is you, I hope this lands really well in your heart and that you don't take it as like, oh, I've done something wrong. This is so helpful and so welcome and such a beautiful reminder because we do it. We do it. And then it's like a reminder for the group to be like, now what can we do to make this more helpful and more effective? Because what we've been doing in the past, what we're used to, what our collective consciousness is used to is not effective, is not helpful. So the comment is on a video where I'm talking about depth and the depth of the experience in connection with somebody else being really important. And this comment is, people are afraid of true connection because they don't believe that the recipient either will accept it, appreciate it, or reciprocate it. So it's saying other people that they don't believe that it's going to be accepted, appreciated, or reciprocated, along with it not being able to process it either. You can spend a long time searching for depth in a puddle as well. So this comment is from their personal experience saying that others don't have depth, and looking for it in puddles is kind of useless and they won't appreciate it, they won't reciprocate it, they won't do this, they won't do that. And there's part of me that's like, ooh, I so want this person to find depth in connection because it's the most beautiful, exquisite experience. And there's also a part of me that's like, until there is responsibility taken on both sides, that will never happen. Because by speaking in the they, there's nowhere that being can go. It's like they don't have depth, they won't reciprocate it, they don't do this. And it's like talking in the past experience, but it's talking, instead of talking in the I, it's saying they don't have this, they don't have that, they don't have the other. And can you see how it would be so much more effective to say, in my past experience, I haven't been able to connect with people because I found shallowness or bitterness and all of these qualities. But to speak in the I, so that it's from a personal experience, so that it's claimed, and so that there's something that you can do about it. Because if you take ownership of things, you can do something about your experience. You can change that. But as soon as all the responsibility is theirs, they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do the other, there's nowhere that you can go, because it's impossible to change another being's experience. And it's also impossible to fully know the other being's experience. I cannot hop into somebody else's consciousness and fully know what they've experienced. I can ask them, and then it's like, depending on what they say, I either believe them or not believe them, but I can never fully know what their experience is. So for me, it's very ineffective to speak about somebody else's experience. They didn't appreciate it. They didn't accept it. And I'm so curious to ask. I was like, did you ask all these other people, are you able to receive my love? Was there even an ask? Are you able to reciprocate? Do you want deep connection with me? I wonder if there was a question, or whether it was just an assumption based on what happened, that they couldn't do that, they can't do that, they don't want to reciprocate it, they don't want this, they're really shallow. I wonder if there was even a question and asked, are you afraid of connection? Is your experience really shallow? Do you see what I mean? And then you can speak in the I and say, I've had this experience, and I asked the person if they were able for incapacity for depth, and they said no. And I would really like to find somebody that has the capability of depth. Do you see what I mean? So if there's an I spoken in the I, there is something you can do about this. There's questions that you can ask others. Are you capable of this? And make sure it's not an assumption that they can't do this, that they're all shallow, that they're this, they're that. Because those are stories. And this person over here will keep creating those same stories. Okay, so if there's responsibility taken, you can change your stories, or you can inquire and you can ask. Is this making sense? So as much as possible, when we're in sacred space, when we're in a retreat space, there's a practice of speaking the I, because the only thing that you are responsible for is your personal experience. The only thing that you can change, the only thing that you can trust or be sure of is your personal experience. And to notice when you say, oh, they did that and they did that and they did that. And then you can go, actually, are you sure? Are you sure that's how they were feeling? Is that A, what they said? B, what you assumed? Did you ask? And, is that true? Because there's no way of popping into somebody else's consciousness. Might not be 100% true. They're going to have their own defense mechanisms. You're going to have your own defense mechanisms. And it's about the two people working together and saying, oh, I feel you've a bit closed there. I'm struggling to connect. Is there a defense mechanism that's popped up? And it's like helping each other to get to the depth. Nobody really gets to the depth on their own. And if you're meeting somebody that's shallow as well, that's an invitation to work on your shallow parts. You're like, every single connection I'm in, they seem to be really shallow. And for me, that would be an invitation to speak in the I and say, where am I shallow? Where do I need to continue my depth? Because then if that's the personal depth journey, then you would be able to meet that in somebody else. But just assuming everybody else is shallow and there's nothing to do over here, to me would be, That's a little bit of a shame, because for me there is collective responsibility, and it's all of us. Because there are some parts of me that are much deeper than other parts. Other parts are a little bit shallow. So if I'm in connection with somebody else, I can ask, "Ooh, where am I shallow in connection here?" Because I see shallowness in them, or that's what I'm meeting. So the invitation would be, where's the shallowness in me? Where can I go with this? Because that's the only thing that you can change, that you do have control over, is what to meet in yourself. So a really important practice to speak in the I from your personal experience, because for me, I get a lot further if I'm speaking in the I, because then I know what's alive in me, what can I change, what's here in connection that I'm responsible for, and then ask them, instead of making any assumptions about their depth or their experience. Ask them, are they now in resistance? Why have they gone into protection mode? Because that's the clue to the depth, is noticing when they close. So if you notice when that person's closed, it's not an invitation to run away and say, okay, they're just closed, they're not able to reciprocate it. It's an invitation to go in and say, what happened in your past that makes you close when I do this? So it's a helpful inquiry. If somebody has closed, or you're met with shallowness or a resistance or a closure, it's like, yes, that's the gateway. Go into that, rather than assuming, this person isn't capable of depth. Goodbye. So it's, for me, because I didn't know how to access my depth, then I inquire about collective consciousness, and I think, wow, maybe we as a collective, there's going to be multiple of me's, because I've had this experience. How many others have had the experience of being afraid of true connection and depth? Because I had that experience. And then the trick is then when I notice a closure in the other, that's my gateway to the depth. It's not to assume they're not capable. It's going, yeah, I've noticed it. This is my way in. Right? So for me, it's really important when we notice somebody else's closure and they can't reciprocate our love and they're afraid of this connection. It's like, oh, that's the invitation in. That's the point to inquire in and see why and help the depth. Because the only way to experience the depth is in connection with somebody else. And they're giving you clues because they don't know how to do it. So the clues are, when do they close? When do they not reciprocate it? When do they go into defense mode? That's the clue in. So it can be taken as a really positive thing. If you find someone's shallow part, great. That's a gateway. If you find somebody is in resistance, great. That's a gateway. If you find somebody is in closure, keeping you at a distance, that is an invitation for a gateway. But there's a certain amount of heart intelligence that you would need to learn first to go through that gateway, if you see what I mean. So that's why heart intelligence, heart IQ, is a practice that will take some conscious learning, discovering, doing it safely, because when people close, is often a trauma response and a protection mechanism. So one would need to be somatically trauma informed and do a certain amount of training to go through these gateways. That is why we are collectively doing this work. So I so appreciate the comment, and I really hope this is helpful for the consciousness of whoever's listening to this, going, oh yeah, when do I not speak in the I, and I've gone, oh yeah, it was them or they or this or that or the other. And it can be a really interesting clue for you to go, I've backed myself up against the wall here, because there's nothing that I can change about that if I keep running the story that it's they. Where can I take responsibility? Where is there a gateway? What have I missed, so that it can be helpful for you? I really hope that that lands and that is super helpful. Please keep sending in your comments. I absolutely love reading them, digesting it, and thinking about nuance and how I say and deliver things so that it really lands in its fullness, in its entirety, because these videos are sort of snippets and bits, and I feel, yeah, can be taken out of context or run down a specific line that I didn't mean. So it's really nice to have all the comments to unpack all of the juicy nuance. So thank you so much. Obijay.